So, Captain America Brave New World is the fourth Captain America film, and the first one to star Anthony Mackie playing Sam Wilson, who is currently in the role of Captain America. And, for Sam's first big feature film as Captain America, they kind of give him kid gloves. And I think my biggest problem with this film is that I've loved the past two Captain America films, like The Winter Soldier and Civil War. I really love those films, not just because like they felt like compelling political thrillers for the themes they wove in there about the shifting politics of the Marvel landscape, but also that it shook it up. Like it felt like at the end of those films that something massive had changed, and that with the way that people got used to this world of superheroes and supervillains. Not so much with Brave New World, and I think this is probably the biggest problem with the film, is that it wants to be a political thriller, much like the past two Captain America films, but it doesn't quite have the guts or the spine to punch as hard as it should. Which is really quite a shame, because I was looking forward to seeing what more could be done with Anthony Mackie in the role of, Captain America now, which, to his credit, I think he has a decent rapport. I did like how when they introduce him in this film, they show off how, like, he's not a super soldier. Like, he's basically a human who, he's still got the wings from his Falcon gear, and he's got the Captain America shield, but he's not indestructible. He does take damage, he does take hits, but he gets up again even when he keeps getting beaten down, which I kind of liked. I kind of thought, okay, well, maybe they're kind of going to build this up as a bit more of of kind of like a bruised arm action film. And there are some moments where, like, yeah, the stakes are pretty high, where you don't think Sam will get out of a fight. And he's got a pretty good sidekick here of Danny Ramirez playing Joaquin Torres, who will become the new Falcon, and he's pretty much good to go. Like, they're both soldiers, and I like that Sam kind of has like an ease to working with like the military. And yeah, the way that the Joaquin and Sam go back and forth, like it's decent. Like I felt like there wasn't enough of them, but they do have kind of like a bit of a Top Gun vibe going on there between them for a few scenes. There really needs to be more of that. And I think this is the biggest problem with the film, is that there is so much that you could cover with all this material. And it only feels like it's scraping by with just like the bare bones of these various elements. Because one element that I thought would have been fascinating would be how they brought Carl Lumley back as Isaiah Bradley, who was like a previous black super soldier who was imprisoned and experimented on, and he comes back into the picture. So I thought, okay, maybe they'll be able to build on something more that was established in the Falcon and Winter Soldier about addressing, the hideous history of how America treats marginalized people. And it feels like the film might be going that way. But before we can question that too much, then we've got to have, Sam meeting with the president, who is, at this point in time, is Thaddeus Ross, who was previously known as, like, the Hulk Hunter. He was going to be played by William Hurt, but since he's passed away, now Harrison Ford is stepping into the role. And Ross basically comes to Sam and is like, hey, there's all these developments that are going on, and basically I want you to be like our superhero in charge of helping us save the world. And at the same time, before we can even contemplate that, there's this Manchurian Candidate plot going on about like these sleeper agents and the conspiracy behind trying to find out who's trying to like assassinate the president, and all these hideous secrets revealed. Now, as a political thriller, I think, the problem with like viewing this film as a political thriller is that the best political thrillers feel like they're saying something about the world, and that they're being very reflective, and they give you like a lot more to munch on in the mind. And the problem with Brave New World is that it has all these ingredients that could be interesting to explore, and all of it just basically amounts to like a standard superhero plot of of a villain having a showdown with Captain America. Not to mention, like, too many villains here. Like, how many villains can we even count here? Like, there's Tim Blake Nelson. He comes back. I kind of liked his return as Stearns, who, from the comics is known as the leader. But he's supposed to be this character who's, like, super intelligent. And I thought, okay, that's a good angle, because then he can kind of craft this kind of intricate conspiracy. But the more that you go through the film, the conspiracy becomes a lot simpler that I think by the time you get to the halfway point, you can not only trace all the simplistic motivations, but also the resolve of how all this is going to work out. So it's not as intricate a thriller as the film makes it seem. And I think a big problem with that is that this film kind of mistakes like the quantity for quality and complexity for compellingness. Because like don't get me wrong, like the direction, it's set up like a political thriller. Like, we're trying to figure out this mystery. There are all these players on the table, including Giancarlo Esposito, who shows up as Sidewinder, who's another assassin. But there's, again, not much time for him. There's all this stuff going on, and that by the time you get to the third act, it just kind of feels limp, and it's just like, it feels like, okay, this was just kind of like a roundabout way of just trying to get to this big fight between Captain America and Red Hulk, which is a neat fight, but like, it feels like the stakes were not big enough here to have like some greater implication. Like the big battle in Civil War, like the previous Captain America film, it was exciting because you get to see all those superheroes fighting each other. But at the same time, they were also fighting for a difference of ideals and how they wanted to approach like a world of defense, especially when they were being undermined by someone like Ross. Within this film, it's mostly just stopping a Red Hulk. Like, and the greater implications of how this would affect the world are just really not there. Like, it just kind of feels like everything in this film will be easily resolved if just Captain America can punch out enough people, and everything will be back to normal by the end of the day, which is really disheartening for all these Captain America films where the world is still in chaos at the end, and it stresses like a need for Captain America to both question his government more and still try to find a way to defend the Earth. And this film just kind of becomes complacent with just like Sam working in this role within the military, kind of in the same way that it made Sam a bit more complacent during the Falcon and Winter Soldier, because that just kind of like reduced this, like this failing policy of the American government to this kind of like routine do more, better speech. And I wish I could say that this film had something more than that, but it kind of doesn't. It just kind of falls on these very simple platitudes where it feels like I said, anything can be solved with just a few punches or a few speeches here and there. To the point where even a few characters just comment like, oh, are we just doing speeches now? And like, yeah, I guess we are. So yeah, it has the look and the feel of a political thriller, but it just doesn't have the thematic heft to kind of like push it through. Not to mention, the film doesn't really feel like it has like the balls to kind of like shake up the Marvel Cinematic Universe the way that the previous Captain America films did. And I think a big problem with that is just is the fact that they try to keep so many of these events in check. Like, I was surprised how many aspects of the MCU they try to weave into this, like just kind of like offhandedly to kind of push the story along. Like I will say this, for those of you who are getting angry that none of the Marvel films are really addressing the big events that happened in the Eternals, Brave New World does address that. Kinda. It kinda addresses it, and it kinda uses it, but not to a degree where it feels like it's weaving it into this political conspiracy that, that feels like it's playing with. It feels like it's being delicate with the MCU, when it really shouldn't. It should be shaking stuff up. It should be feeling like there is something bigger here instead of just being this little side story and until we wait until like the next big Avengers crossover event. Like, the Captain America films never quite felt that way to me, but this one did, surprisingly. Not to mention, if you're going to compare this to like political thrillers, because like I said, the best political thrillers are the ones that have an overarching theme to it. Because I'm sure because this film has sleeper agents, it'll get the easy comparison to the Manchurian Candidate. But the thing is, the Manchurian Candidate actually felt like it was trying to say something about the Cold War and the fear of communism, that it was being reflective of our times. Brave New World really doesn't feel reflective of our times. In fact, it feels even more fantastical with how easy it is to like hold this president accountable for the conspiracies that he gets accused of and how he tries to defend his political career. So it's almost fantastical to that degree where it really shouldn't. Like, you should feel like it's a political thriller that's punching hard instead of just being a comic book superhero film that is masquerading as a political thriller. Like the previous Captain America films were able to do that, but Brave New World just never finds its groove because it just, like I said, it just keeps mounting all this almost kind of like faux intrigue to kind of like, stage it as a thriller, and all it just amounts to is just another big fight. I didn't even get a chance to talk that much about the other secondary characters, like a Secret Service agent played by Zosha Rakimor, and Shira Haas playing Ruth, and it's basically because there's so much going on, they barely have anything to do. Most of their role is just debriefing and maybe kicking some butt here and there. So yeah, it's definitely a busy film, especially for being just under 2 hours. But in terms of trying to set itself up as a political thriller, I don't think it does a good job. So, Anthony Mackie deserves more than this, especially Danny Ramirez. I think both of them have a pretty good chemistry that there isn't enough of that in this film to like enjoy that buddy dynamic. So it's crowded by a lot of this political thriller staging that just ends up being thematically empty. So yeah, this is definitely the worst Captain America film for how it tries to, shake up the political landscape and just really doesn't. So yeah, it's a pretty big misfire for these Captain America films.